Welcome into Pigskin Perspectives. It is a weekend preview. It's been a while since Pigskin Perspectives has happened, but we are back. We're here to preview a weekend in college football where it's an okay slate. It's not great. It's not terrible. Could be much better. It could be much worse. So as usual, we'll do a six pack. We'll give you my 6 best games for this weekend in college football. Then we will take a look at the NFL slate. There's some interesting games there. Obviously, one of those games has already happened. We'll mention it, but it will be more of a recap for Tuesday when we do the full NFL recap. So let's get into it to start off with the 6-pack. Like I said, not a ton of outstanding games this weekend, but there's still enough to make a 6-pack here, all featuring ranked teams. We're going to start out with the game that's actually happening right now as I'm recording this, so that's not going to help you preview your weekend. But Oregon State hosting Utah. This is a obviously top 20 battle in the Pac-12. Could be the last time these two are facing off for a while. Obviously, Oregon State still does not have a home for next year. Latest rumors are they might be talking to the Big 12, which would mean that this would be played again next year. So this might not be a game next year. It might be pointless out of this game. But two very quality teams. Oregon State coming off the loss to Washington State. Utah's had a pretty good year to start the year. Cam Rising, I don't believe is playing right now. Could be completely wrong on that. But he's obviously been the main storyline for Utah this year. Trying to get back from that ACL injury at the Rose Bowl last year. Like I said, I don't think he's playing right now. It hasn't been a real factor for Utah, I'd say. I mean, they're still 4-0 coming into this game, so they've played pretty well without him. DJ Uiagalelei, the transfer quarterback from Clemson for Oregon State, has really helped this team this year. People were really wondering, how is this, going to work, basically. It turns out really well. So that it's right up there as game of the weekend. But obviously it's happening on Friday. Pac-12, can't figure it out. What can we say? Second game of this 6-pack, you have Colorado, the Deion Sanders hype train that was somewhat very derailed last week after a blowout loss to Oregon. Well, guess who they get next? They get USC. This time at home. They're not going to LA to the Coliseum, but they will face number 8 USC. Kind of expecting a bit more of the same from last week with Colorado. I think it's not going to be close. This is going to be quite a struggle for them in this game. They just don't have the talent to compete. But given that, USC kept Arizona State in the game last week. So honestly, wouldn't be surprised if they keep Colorado in the game this week, because that's just what an Alex Grinch defense does. They just give up points free-handedly. Moving on, the next game so we're almost halfway through this 6-pack. Number 3 Texas host Kansas, which it's not mentioned on here, but Kansas is indeed ranked. Believe they are at 24 right now. Quite an interesting game. This will be the last time these two are facing. I don't see Texas scheduling Kansas anytime in the future in the SEC. Obviously, this game has been one of memes because Kansas has beaten Texas twice in the past 10 years. Both times have just created a lot of content out of it. One last hurrah. Both teams 4-0 coming into this game. I just think Texas is a much better team here. I expect Texas to get over quite handily here. Moving on, we're officially in the second half of the 6-pack now. We got 2 SEC battles coming up, and then we move on to the ACC. Noticeably no Big Ten this week. No real huge matchups there. And, some of their best teams are on a bye this week. So, Deep South's oldest rivalry heads to the Plains as Hugh Freeze gets his first taste of this rivalry as Auburn hosts number 1 Georgia. Georgia obviously haven't looked outstanding they haven't looked up to the caliber that they're usually at. They still very much look like a national championship type team. Let's be honest here. They're Georgia. They're going to figure it out. Carson Beck, he's no Stenson Bennett, but he's getting the job done. Obviously, he's getting that maturity. I think that's going to be real influential a few years down the road. But Auburn, I don't think is good here. Peyton Thorne, I don't think is even going to start this game. That's just how bad he was last week. If he does start, it's going to get even worse for Auburn. And I expect Georgia to roll in this one. Then you move on to our 5th game of the 6-pack. You have number 20 Ole Miss hosting number 12 LSU in the Magnolia Bowl. This is quite a good matchup here. Ole Miss coming off the loss to Alabama last week. I still think they showed a lot, though. You lost to Alabama, but you put up more of a fight than I expected. I know a lot of people kind of expected them to go out and win the game outright. I didn't really expect that. Alabama. Like I said, Ole Miss still put up a pretty good fight. LSU, they only have the one loss on the season to Florida State at the beginning of the year. They haven't really had any tough challenges since then. Yes, they had Arkansas last week. I think this is a bigger challenge. This is that first real test since the Florida State game. And I'm going to be interested to see how LSU have developed since then. Then finally, the last game of this 6-pack, you have number 16 Duke hosting number 13 Notre Dame. Duke coming into this game 4-0. Notre Dame coming off that loss to Ohio State last week at the last second. This is a comeback game for Notre Dame. They have to prove they are not the team that was shown against Ohio State. And this is a tough test. I will say that. I'm really shocked with how good Mike Elko has got this team that quickly. Obviously, they did pretty well last year. They look much better this year. Quarterback Riley Leonard looks just calm and composed in the pocket. Just looks like a really solid quarterback for Duke, which is not something you usually say about Duke. But Mike Elko has this team going places. The question is, will Mike Elko be going places before Duke goes places? I would like it known that I would like Mike Elko as the next head coach of Michigan State football. Given that, Notre Dame's going to come away with the win here, I think. It's going to take a lot of things to go right for Duke, and then them capitalizing on the mistakes in Notre Dame for them to have a chance to win. I just don't know if Notre Dame is going to make those mistakes that keeps Duke in this game, which is why I think Notre Dame ends up coming away with the victory here and handing Duke their first loss. So given that is going to be it for our 6-pack. It's time to move on to the NFL. Just a slate of games galore. We had the game last night. The Lions traveled to Green Bay to face off against the Packers. Lions dominate start to finish, win that game. Recap that on Tuesday. So let's start out with our preview. 9:30 a.m., which you know what that means. The international season has started for the NFL. The Falcons traveled to London to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are there for 2 weeks, I believe, because they play next week too. This is... I don't even know what this game is. The Jaguars don't look good this year. Trevor Lawrence seemed to have regressed. The Falcons aren't good. This game's at Wembley Stadium, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. This game just is going to be rough. ESPN's really trying to market it with this Toy Story game that they're putting within the game on ESPN Plus, no, I'll pass. I'll watch my football like football's supposed to be watched, which is, the football way. This is just going to be an ugly game. The poor people of London getting sent this when in a few weeks Germany gets the Dolphins and Chiefs. Yeah, yikes. The poor people of London. Like I said, I have no idea what to think on this game. This is just ugly. It screams ugliness. Moving on, let's get into the slate of games in America. You have the Ravens traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Big news coming out of this one. Well, one, Odell Beckham Jr. will not be making his return to Cleveland. He is out for this game. But the bigger news coming out today, Deshaun Watson questionable with a shoulder injury. He's only thrown once or twice this week in practice, which leads me to believe Dorian Thompson-Robinson will be starting at quarterback for the Browns this week, which is just, it's not a disaster. It's a disaster waiting to happen. I'll put it in that stage. I like Robinson. I think he's a good quarterback. I just think this is way too early. He's a rookie. He had a good preseason, but, there's not much there to show that he can go out and win this game, especially with the loss of Nick Chubb. We obviously haven't been here since Nick Chubb's knee just got completely decapitated. Luckily, it wasn't career-ending, thankfully. I do worry if Dorian Thompson-Robinson is the starter in this game. But on the other side of that, the Ravens lost to the Colts last week, so really anything can happen. I wouldn't be surprised if, the Ravens win by 20 or Dorian Thompson-Robinson just runs all over the Ravens. Either thing could easily happen in this game. The Dolphins, coming off their 70-point performance, go up against the Bills in Buffalo. I'm not expecting another 70 points from the Dolphins here, but I am expecting another Dolphins win. What I've watched so far this season, I think the Dolphins are the real deal. They look like a really, really good team. I think the division's opened for them, given the Aaron Rodgers injury. The Bills not looking as good as they usually are, and the Patriots just being there. Obviously, this will be the game telling of that, given that they are going up probably against their biggest opponent for the division right now in Buffalo. I think the Dolphins can pull this one out, though, and then just hopes and dreams will be skyrocketed in Miami about hosting a playoff game this year, which, even though we are still a long ways away from that. We both looked absolutely terrible last week, and we've kind of looked terrible all year bowl. The Denver Broncos traveled to Chicago to face off against the Bears. You wanted ugly. You got it in the London game. This is whatever's below ugly. This is even worse than ugly. This game is just going to be disgusting. I think that's what's below ugly, is disgusting. Disgusting all over the place. This game is just going to be unbearable to watch. The Broncos gave up 70 points last week. The Bears just look awful on offense and defense. Justin Fields looks like he doesn't know what he's doing out there, which I think he knows what he's doing. It's just, I think there's so much incompetence within the Bears organization that makes it look like he doesn't know what he's doing. It's going to be a real problem if the Bears end up with the number 1 pick and they get Caleb Williams. That's going to be a really big problem. Caleb Williams is a really good player. He's really talented. He doesn't deserve to go to this organization. That's like the only organization I don't think he can go to, because they will completely ruin it. Moving on, the Steelers travel down to Houston, I should say, take on the Texans. The Steelers haven't looked good at all this year. They lucked into a win against Cleveland, if we're honest here. The Texans, the division's bad enough that they can be sneaky enough to win the division, even though they're still a long ways away from, finishing their rebuild. CJ Stroud has looked like the best rookie quarterback so far this year, so there's hope there. I think they come out with the win here because I just think the Steelers are not good at all. I think Kenny Pickett is awful. The only thing keeping the Steelers together is their defense right now, and that's basically just TJ Watt. Moving on, the Vikings travel down to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Two 0-4 teams here. The Vikings, or 0-3, I should say, not 0-4. One team will be 0-4 after this game, but I'm expecting that team to be the Panthers because the Vikings should be better than 0-3, but they've just looked not great. They have too much talent on this team to be 0-3, and I'm kind of getting worried about them. If they lose this game, that is very worrying about the Vikings. The Rams travel to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. The Colts coming off that huge overtime win against the Ravens that I don't think anybody saw coming, even Colts fans. Gardner Minshew leading them to victory. Believe Anthony Richardson is back this week, which is a damper for some Colts fans because they don't think he's good. I kind of tend to agree with them, but a mostly healthy Rams team will be going up against this Colts team. I expect the Rams to come away with the victory here. The Buccaneers, coming off a just awful-looking Monday night loss to the Eagles, take on the New Orleans Saints, who themselves don't look good at all this year. I believe Jameis Winston is starting in this game. Derek Carr is out. That's worrying. This game, like I said, there's a few games on here this weekend. They're just in that ugly range, and I kind of feel like this fits in. These two teams aren't good. They're only competing right now because their division's awful. This game, it's not for the faint of heart. Moving on to a old school NFC East battle, the Washington Commanders travel to Philly to take on the Eagles. Eagles coming off a Monday night victory against the Buccaneers. They've looked pretty good to start the season. Commanders also, they're holding in, I would say. I think there's more changes coming within the organization at the end of the year. Just player-wise, you're transitioning with new ownership. I think this is just kind of a scratch-it year for the Commanders organization, and I expect the Eagles to walk away with victory in this one. Bengals travel to Tennessee to take on the Titans, two very disappointing teams to start off this season. I wouldn't say they're the two most disappointing teams, but they're two quite disappointing teams to start the year. Joe Burrow still doesn't look healthy, which is quite worrying. You signed that huge extension it was before week 1. Comes out week 1, loses to the Browns, somewhat gets re-injured, and just doesn't look good week 2. Week 3 was the Rams game on Monday night. Or no, that was week 2. The Rams game was Monday night. No, that was this week. And they looked okay. I'm worried about Joe Burrow's health because, like I said, I don't think he looks 100%. The Raiders travel to LA, their old stomping grounds, to face off against the Chargers. A game that will look like a Raiders home game, most likely. The Raiders don't look good again. Josh McDaniels doesn't look like a good coach again. I just don't know what to do with this organization. The Chargers don't look good again. Brandon Staley doesn't look like a good coach again. They look like a terrible organization again. This is the disappointment bowl because these two franchises don't know how to be run. I don't even know who to pick here. Just we'll move on. The disappointing we're moving on to an almost even worse game. The Patriots travel to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. The Patriots, my. This is turning into a disaster for the Patriots. Mac Jones does not look good at all, if we're honest. Bill Belichick, he's built this team. I mean, since Tom Brady left, he's obviously had a big role in this. This team looks terrible. I don't know what he's building for. They look terrible. The Cowboys lost to the Cardinals last week, who are intentionally tanking. They lost to them. This game it's going to be a Cowboys victory, but at what cost? We're going to hear about how the Cowboys are back for another week and how they're going to the Super Bowl again from every major media outlet because they get in on this Cowboys propaganda every single year. And then it all falls apart. And then we're all laughing there again. We think next year, maybe they'll finally listen. Do you know what happens? They do the exact same thing again. And they're doing it again this year. The Cowboys aren't good. I don't know how many times we need to say this. They're not good. Dak Prescott, he's an okay quarterback. He's not an elite talent like the media makes him out to be. And if he gets injured, they look terrible. Yes, they look worse without him. And no, he's not injured right now, so I don't know why I'm going on a rant about his health. But let's just move on. The Cowboys annoy me. The tanking Cardinals, who beat this Dallas Cowboys team last week, this team that was going to the Super Bowl. Don't you know they're going to the Super Bowl? They take on the San Francisco 49ers, who are looking like an actual Super Bowl team this year. They look quite good. Excited to see where this 49ers team goes. I believe in Brock Purdy, but I don't think he's an outstanding talent. I don't think he's your quarterback of the future. He's good for now. I think he's playing a system that fits him really well. And I think if anything happens to that, Brock Purdy is done, basically. But I expect the 49ers to roll here. A game that could have been exciting on Sunday Night Football that is just going to be a depression fest. The Kansas City Chiefs travel to New York to face off against the New York Jets. We have to watch Zach Wilson in prime time. It's going to be an absolute disaster. They may show Taylor Swift more times than Zach Wilson. We're going to have to deal with that too. This is just going to be a comedy circus come Sunday night that nobody's going to want to watch as the Chiefs blow out the Jets by 40. But we'll just move on here. And for the second time this year, MetLife hosting a back-to-back primetime game. And for the second time this year, MetLife Stadium hosting a back-to-back primetime game, this time with the teams flipped. The New York Jets are now on Sunday night, obviously. The New York Giants are at home on Monday night. They face off against the Seattle Seahawks. The New York Football Giants, not good at football. Seattle Seahawks, they're okay. They're a wild card-ish team. They're going to win here unless Geno Smith gets injured somehow, which is a very real possibility. MetLife is cursed. But yeah, the Seahawks roll in this game because the New York Football Giants are not good at football. So given that is going to be it for Pigskin Perspectives this evening. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you stumble across this video, hit like, hit subscribe, tell anybody you know about it. We will be back very soon for a full recap of this whole weekend on another episode of Pigskin Perspectives.